G'day guys, welcome back. My name is Wildkard. Thank you for being here and watching my content. As always, it is my pleasure and privilege to talk about the greatest game in the world, rugby. And Six Nations is upon us this weekend, and the teams for the opening match have just been announced. France versus Ireland, this will be in Marseille. And oh boy, this is two teams, two wounded animals, going to fight it out for a little piece of redemption following both exits out of the quarterfinals in the Rugby World Cup. And, ironically, both teams are back playing in France in this match. So, yeah, two quarterfinal exits, two wounded animals, two cornered hounds looking to pound on each other for a little piece of redemption for both teams. In the case of the French, they literally have players coming out of retirement in the form of Uni Antonio and Romain Taufifenoa. Both came back out of retirement to kind of, live on, redeem themselves from that disappointment in the Rugby World Cup. Whereas for Ireland, people have moved on. The biggest one, the king himself, Johnny Sexton, the greatest Irishman, rugby football player ever, in my opinion. A lot of you might say it's Brian O'Driscoll, but I think Brian O'Driscoll has never been in New Zealand. So, yeah, Johnny Sexton, despite the disappointing quarterfinal exit, is just someone that the Irish has been living without, relying upon heavily in the last 4 years under the reign of Randy Farrell. And, this is going to be a really difficult situation for Ireland to see how they're going to carry on with the succession plans. And this is also going to be a bit interesting for the French, at least temporarily. They're going to be going without Antoine Dupont, their captain, and their key playmaker, the way that Fabien Galthié, formerly a halfback himself, has kind of like built this style of rugby where all the playmaking is funneled through the 9 position instead of the 10 position. So how the French is going to adapt to that, we'll have to wait and see. And this will be one of the first tests for their new kind of style that they're going to be adapting to. But then again, this is kind of like a temporary thing for the French. They're going to be able to have Antoine Dupont back next year, and it's going to be they're going to be able to carry on with the style, the French style of rugby going forward in 2025. So yeah, this is a bit of a hiccup of the French, but Ireland in much more of a different situation here. Andy Farrell, to address the situation of Johnny Sexton, has actually opted for something that we have never seen before in this match, which is really interesting for me because this is the first time ever under the reins of Andy Farrell, I actually went back and looked through every lineup that Ireland has had since Andy Farrell taken over, and they have never had a 6-2 lineup set up in the bench. So yeah, this is the first time ever Ireland has opted for only 2 backline cover, as opposed to the traditional setup of 5 forwards and 3 backs. And I find this actually quite interesting that Andy Farrell has opted to try this. It obviously shows that he wants to shift away from the style that the Irish were playing and trying to figure out a different way of playing rugby, and maybe recognizing the success that the South Africans has had playing in a 6-2 lineup. The French is also playing a 6-2 lineup, but the French has already been doing that for quite a while to a lot of success with that 6-2 setup. So it's really interesting for me to see that Andy Farrell is starting to adopt into this because, quite frankly, the Irish team, at least with Johnny Sexton on the field, has been the most successful team in the world with the 5-3 setup. Yeah, so the way that the Irish play, they really like to jam the centers. They like to have an extra center on the bench, normally in the form of McCloskey or in Gary Ringrose, who's injured for this game. So usually they have an additional center in the field and really just like to jam that 12 and 13 channel with that extra power off the bench in the center positions with the faster pace in the quick recycling and just a lot of pressure through the center field. And that's something that maybe the Irish team's looking to moving away from. And obviously with Gary Ringrose injured, maybe that has something to do with the decision to go with the 6-2 for Andy Farrell because he just simply don't have that. He may be thinking that he don't have that, without Johnny Sexton to direct to manage the rhythm, and also without the Gary Ringrose to manage to manage coming off the bench or to sort of finish off the game. It maybe felt like that strategy is not going to be working as well going forward. So he's opted to for the first time ever, despite all the success he's had with the 5-3 setups. In fact, the Irish has beaten the Springboks with the 5-3 setup against a 7-1 setup against the Springboks in the tournament. They beat the All Blacks. The All Blacks had a 5-3 setups. They lost to the All Blacks, but the All Blacks had a 5-3 setup. So it's not like the All Blacks were jamming forwards on the bench that led to the loss to the Irish team. There wasn't like the bench setup wasn't the issue for the Ireland when they lost to the All Blacks. And it's really interesting to see how this is going to pay out for the Irish team going into this matchup. And also, without Johnny Sexton, Ireland under the reign of Andy Farrell, and also under the reign of Fabien Galthié, the Irish has never been in the French team. Yeah, they have never been in the French without Johnny Sexton. The only time they did beat the French was last year, and that was at Aviva Stadium. So away in France without Johnny Sexton, yeah, it's gonna be rough. But then again, the last time the two teams met in France, which was in 2022, France did get away with quite a fast start to the game, but Ireland was able to catch up late in the game, but wasn't quite enough to reach for the win. But still, it wasn't like a huge sort of like blowout. It's gonna see. It's very interesting to see what's going to happen in this game, and we'll have to wait and see. Yeah. So yes, as we've already mentioned, this game is going to be played in France, in Marseille. And it's going to be on Friday night, I believe. So because it's a Saturday morning at 7 a.m. for me. So it'll be nice, cool weather, cool conditions, really good conditions for rugby. Not wet or anything. And it will be good to see some good rugby. So the surface will be, I guess, quite dry. And it will be a good fast-paced settings for both teams to execute. The history of the two teams I already talked about. So since the taking over of Andy Farrell and Fabien Galthié in 2020, I guess, it's first season, Galthié has not lost to Ireland, especially without Johnny Sexton. So yeah, even this one, Dublin, 13 points, 15. That was without Johnny. Johnny had a head knock in this game, or maybe it was the game before. But yeah, this was, so this is something that, a massive issue for, maybe this is one of the reasons why Andy Farrell wants to make a bit of a change, because you're obviously doing the same thing over and over again. It's the definition of being insane. So, Andy Farrell is going to try something different and see if it works. And so it's going to be interesting to see how this is going to work out for Ireland. The referee is going to be Carl Dixon from England, from the RFU. Carl Dixon, if you ask me what I think of him, in 2022, I would say he was very trigger happy, probably a bit, too strict on his interpretation of the law. But in the Rugby World Cup, he's actually improved a lot. He's more reasonable in a lot of his penalties, a lot of his cards. And I think overall, Carl Dixon has actually improved a lot as a referee in last year. So I'm actually pretty happy to see how he's going to go in this match, given a massive match like this, and see how he's going to work in this match. And it's good to see that Carl Dixon is improving as a referee, someone that I thought was just a bit too whistle happy. About 12 months prior. So yeah, I think it's going to be a good referee for this match in the end. Now finally, let's have a look at lineup. Let's have a look at some of the changes that both teams have been made. As I've mentioned that both teams have opted 6-2 bench split, and the interesting part of the French with the 6-2 bench splits, they're actually doing a different style of 6-2 bench split than they were doing traditionally. They traditionally have what's his name? Siku Makalu as a additional winger cover as a forward. So they used to have a forward that doubles up as a winger to cover the bench. Essentially, that's the 6-2 setup that the French normally do. But for this match, they have forgone that. Yeah, so it's a bit of a risky setup, in my opinion. But they have opted for more of a having one back in the form of Mo Ofana, who's starting at 11, kind of covers the whole backline sort of deal. Something that, so if you're gonna do this, basically having just strictly only two backs on the bench instead of two backs and a forward, that's basically also a back. So essentially like 2.5 backs. it's actually interesting to see if both teams are going to play a different style of rugby as well. Because, the South Africans came up with this sort of like extra forwards on the bench style. The one thing that a lot of teams, the South Africans actually get criticized a lot for this as well, is that they actually play a different style than most of the team in the world. People call it boring or whatnot, but there's a reason for it. The South African likes to kick the ball away a lot, and you might think that that's boring. And it's not because the South African can't play an expansive, try-scoring, high, speed style of rugby. We've seen that in the Rugby World Cup. We've seen that, in fact, against the French in the quarterfinals. It's not because they can't play that style. It's because they choose not to play that style. And the reason for it, it's not because they want to bore everyone to death. The reason for it is because they know that their backline can't get injured. When they play, there is this B team. I know the South Africans don't like to hear it. They play the B team with Esther Hazen and Kanan Moody in the center positions. You'll notice that those two players run the ball a lot because they are basically the backup. So they're happy to run the ball a lot. But when they play the starting A team with Dale Lender and Jesse Kriel, you rarely see Jesse Kriel crashing the ball down in the middle of the field. Very rarely do you see that. And even Dale Lender, who has been known to be someone that's really good at breaking the game line in center field, do that very rarely as well under the Springboks, which led to a lot of, people talk about why having the two replaced. And the reason is not because they both suck at rugby. It's because the Springboks want to play in the way that minimizes injuries. That is why you see the Springboks in the Rugby World Cup final. They just kick the ball away with zero phases. Nobody's taking the ball into tackle in the back line. They just kick the ball away right away. They do that because they don't want it to initiate the contact and risk injuries in the back line. So there's a reason for a lot of the so-called boring rugby is being played. And, that's how the Springboks are able to pull that off successfully. I don't know if both these teams, if they're going to play the style that they're used to, in the short term, yeah, maybe you're going to be able to get away with 1 or 2 games. But if you play this ongoing every game for, years to come, I don't know if the injury is the injury could actually stack up to a point where you might risk a lot of issues with injuries and covers and stuff, and it's just not going to work. So because you are asking players to play 80 minutes, and you're asking players to do the workload that they're normally going to do in 60 minutes for 80 minutes. And that adding up over the years, it's going to be a lot. Every 3 games that some of these players play, they're basically playing an extra game because they're going to usually, not an extra game, yeah, because they usually play 60 minutes. Now they play extra 20 minutes. So they're going to be playing basically an extra game every three test matches. Getting the workload of an extra game. So yeah, a lot of these things that I don't know how it's going to go. I'm probably going a bit of too much of a tangent here. But like I said, the both teams, if they want to play the style, just strictly having 2 backs covering, they might have to consider a different play style. And we're going to see if that's actually going to happen this weekend. And yeah, we'll see. Like it or not, it's just something that you kind of have to do if you wanted to, for the long-term sustainable setup as a 7-2. For France, if you had, the 2.5 setup, they could be fine because they literally wouldn't be an issue. They have an extra person to play the back. But yeah, if you're just strictly going to have 6-2, it's going to be, I think the style both team plays, it's going to be it could be a bit of an issue going in long term. But anyway, let's look at the lineup. Let's look at how this is gonna go this weekend. So the front row battle, the 4-pack, is absolutely humongous this weekend. Cyril Bai coming in number 1, Peto Movaka number 2, and obviously I'm the most excited player I want to see again is Uni Antonio. I thought he was the best tight end probably in the world at the Rugby World Cup, and he was so good. I was really happy to see him come back out of retirement. To be fair, he's so good form just so dominant. Destroying the All Black scrum. And I'm very happy to see him back again. He's up against, again, the very good in form, front rowers from Leinster, Andrew Porter, Dan Shim, and Ty Furlong. And they have been pretty much dominant as well in the club rugby. And we shall see how these two forward packs, the front rows line up against each other. Andrew Porter against Uni Antonio. It's a massive lineup. Andrew Porter has been the dominant side in the scrummaging as well. So Antonio is the dominant side on the French side. So you have two pit bulls going head to head against each other there. Quite exciting to see. The French have opted to change both of their locks from their Rugby World Cup exit against New Zealand. They got Paul Gabriel Lagos comes in at number 4 jersey. Paul hasn't played. Gabriel Lagos haven't played for France. My understanding is at least 4 years. I think this is the first time he's selected under Gaultier. Let me know if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure he hasn't played since at least 2020, 2019. So he's back in the fold. Paul Willems had a bit of injury in the Rugby World Cup, so he's now back at number 5 jersey. So obviously the two players I missed out, Thibaut Flament and Cameron Wookie are both on the bench. Francois Croc gets called in number 6 jersey for the French. Oh, sorry, let me go to the Ireland first. Joey McCarthy comes in number 4, and Ty Byrne comes in number 5. Joey McCarthy got the selection nod ahead of James Ryan and Ian Henderson, which is a little bit surprise to me. Obviously, Andy Farrell has seen something good out of him, the youngster. In the loose forwards position now, Francois Croc comes in number 6 for the injured and what's his name, Gelock, and he gets a number 6 jersey. Peter Romani returns to number 6 in the blindside position for Ireland. Charles Ollivon, the open side flanker for French. I'm pretty sure the captain is Cyril Bay. It's not Charles Ollivon, who previously was the captain. But some people were saying that because of language issues, they want people who are better English. The reason why Cyril Bay was selected. I'm pretty sure Cyril Bay is the captain, right? Am I getting that wrong? They talk about something about with like the language issue. But Anton Dupont, from my understanding, wasn't great at English. But yeah, I was surprised they didn't just give it back to Charles Ollivon. But anyway, George Van der Fleer comes in number 7, as always, for the Irish team. Finally, the number 8, Gregor Aldrich and Caelan Doris, the two go-to players now for both teams, a number 8 jersey for both teams. In the back line, changes all around for two playmakers. Maxime Lucu comes in number 9 to fill big shoes for Anton Dupont. The style that Luca's going to be playing, it's going to be more of a traditional 9. I'll be very surprised if he's going to do any sort of, chip kick behinds that we're so used to from Anton Dupont out of Lucu. But hey, we'll have to wait and see how they're going to manage that. Jameson Gibson-Parks comes in number 9 for Ireland. The big thing that Gibson Parks brings is a speed at the breakdown. He's one of the fastest, delivery guy from out of the rocks. Exactly what the Irish team wants out of that. Matthew Jalibert comes in number 10. I think he might be the playmaker of this game. We shall see how that functions. But again, without Anton Dupont, there has to be a little bit of changing going around in the way that the French is going to play. Jack Crowley has been given the reins ahead of so many of his peers. And we've had what's his name? Joey Carberry's gone. Ross Byrne is gone. Harry Byrne, his brother, I think Ross Byrne's injured actually. Harry Byrne's his brother is playing at Leinster at the moment. So Crowley has been kind of given the nod already at the World Cup as number 10. And obviously winning the URC last year was quite big for his career. And also Billy Burns, we've all known that his career was ended, but kind of being prematurely, I felt I put into the team in place of an injured Johnny Sexton in 2021, resulting in him basically ending his international test career in a very, very short run. So Jack Crowley has big shoes to fill, and we'll have to see how he's going to cope with this weekend in under the bright lights. Urain Moefana comes in number 11. He's the guy that basically is like the utility that covers every position in the backline. He plays center, and I'm pretty sure he plays fullback as well. And basically covers every position in the backline. So I was surprised that they opted for him to start and not have Bieri starting 11 and just have him on the bench to kind of like actually cover everyone. So they have him on the start. So if somebody gets injured, he's going to have to play the full game. I just think that's a little bit interesting to have somebody that covers every position on the field, essentially. Kind of like in the start. So Jalibert, obviously, if he's injured, Ramos is going to fill in at 10. But yeah, it's interesting how Gaultier has decided on having him in the starting position. Interesting to see that. James Lowe comes in number 11 for the Irish. No Stockdale. I did watch a little bit of Stockdale playing, with Billy Burns at Ulster. Ulster hasn't been performing very well, so who knows if that's the reason why he's not started. But I think some of the Irish fans probably know better than me. So he's not selected at all. Interestingly, though, Stockdale is a bit of a versatile player. He can cover fullback position. They have opted to not run him even on the bench as a cover for the 7-2 setup either. So it's, we'll have to see what they're going to do with him. Jonathan Danty comes in number 12. Gao Fuku, number 13. The powerhouse now already for the French. Great defensively, and Danty, just absolute offensive weapon. Bundy Yaki is a very similar style to Jonathan Danty. Again, Bundy Yaki in such a good form in Rugby World Cup. He was the best form that I've ever seen Bundy Yaki at the Rugby World Cup. The way he's able to break the game line, the way he's able to find these little angles and punch himself through. This will be a great lineup. A great matchup this weekend, once again, out of the 12 jersey. Robbie Henshaw comes in number 13 for the injured Gary Ringrose. Robbie Henshaw has been a bit of an injury in and out himself as well, so he's back in the fold at number 13 jersey. At number 14, Damien Penald. One of the most dangerous winger in the world. Yes, I will never forget. Damien Penald. Yes, let's move on. Too much pain this guy's inflicted upon me, but let's just move on. Kevin Nash comes in number 14. Again, interestingly, not Stockdale. So a lot of you guys were telling me that Stockdale plays 11. I feel like wingers can just switch between 11 and 14, right? Like if you, obviously the kicking is going to be a bit of an issue. Depends which side you're on. But yeah, I feel like, but anyway, yeah, they obviously felt that Calvin Nash with only one test cap is a better option at 14. And then again, it's also NFL is looking at making some changes and brought him in at number 14 jersey, Calvin Nash. Number 15, Thomas Ramos. As always, now the goal kicker, the guy that has one of the highest percentage goal kicking and great kicking game as well. Immaculate under the high ball. Hugo Kinnan is option number 15. Hugo Kinnan is just as good in Thomas Ramos in every aspect of the game. I do think that except for the goal kicking, I don't think Kinnan has done goal kicks before. But let me know, I could be wrong. Ramos is, it's quite a weapon. Kinnan, I think, maybe a little bit better in the counter-attacking than Ramos, but overall, the two are matched up extremely evenly in the back there. In the reserves now, Julian McCond comes back in at number 16. I think it was a bit of injured. Vreda Vardy, I'm surprised that this guy is here. He was the one that had the ball stripped from him in the final minutes of the final second of the Rugby World Cup, and leading to him losing the match against the Springboks. And I mean, like, everything that you fear, the sum of all fears, occurred to this guy, right? He had the ball stripped from him, which is something that the forwards hate the most. He had the ball stripped from him by a back instead of another forward, which is something that is, again, worse than getting the ball stripped is having the ball stripped by a back. And even worse, if the back is literally the smallest man on the field in its form of Faf de Klerk, that's just like the utmost nightmare that you're going to be imagining. And out of all that, it was stripped in the dying seconds of the game where you lost the match. And that's already bad enough. But this was an elimination match in a home crowd in France at the Rugby World Cup. Man, that's just like the worst of the worst nightmares altogether. So I don't know if this guy is seeing a shrink. But man, if that was me, I would be living in a mental institution for at least 2 years. But man, good to see him back. And boy, he had a rough day at the office at Rugby World Cup. So he's back at number 17. Dorian Aldergary comes in number 18. For the Irish, Ronan Keller, number 16. Cian Healy returns from his injury at number 17. The absolute Iron Man just returns for Ireland. Finlay Beatlem comes in number 18. The powerhouse now off the bench, the finishers, Roman Taufifenua, as always, come to number 19, coming back from retiring. Man, James Ryan gets the bench at number 19. Cameron Wilkie at number 20. Paul Bodegent comes in at 21. Bodegent, he plays a flanker, but my understanding that he has a brother that plays center. So maybe maybe he doubles up as a back. But as far as I can tell, based on information that I can see, that he's a flanker. His brother is a center, so maybe he has a bit of that blood that he can cover the backline in some fashion or form. But from my understanding, I don't think that he can. Let me know if I'm wrong. And then for the Irish side, just straight up nobody, just straight up brute force in the backline. Ryan Baird, Jack Conan comes in at number 21 to fill in the number 8 spot, and then the two backline reserves for both teams. And Nolan Lagaric comes in number 22 for his debut, and Louis Bielbieri, everybody's babyface, love child at the Rugby World Cup for the French, comes in number 23. And yes, interesting to see that he's not starting, and interesting to see, like I said, to see that him being number 23 instead of Moefana being at 23. For the Irish, Conor Murray comes back at number 22. Again, Casey, I thought Casey would have been a better selection here, number 22. But Conor Murray, I think Andy Farrell wants a bit more experience come on the bench, maybe. And finally, the number 23 jersey, Kieran Frawley, born in Sydney, by the way, to Irish parents, obviously. He went back at a very young age. But Kieran, mate, old mate Kieran here. He is, my understanding that he plays 3 positions. He plays, he plays fullback, fly half, and center. So he can cover every position's backline, and that seems to be what Andy Farrell has in mind to cover the backline. But yeah, I'm surprised. Yeah, I guess he does have a little bit more versatility. The fact that he covers fly half, and Stockdale doesn't cover fly half. So maybe, yeah, I think that's a really interesting call. And again, he's very new to Test rugby. We shall see how that goes. If that's going to work out as a long-term solution to Andy Farrell, a long-term change of direction for Andy Farrell. But Kieran Frawley is in at 23 with only 1 Test cap under his belt for the cover of the entire backline. Anyway, let me know your thoughts, guys. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know your predictions. I actually think the French are going to win this one, to be really frank with you. I do think that even without Anton Dupont, it's not going to be that big of an issue for the French team. Whereas without Johnny Sexton, Ireland has never been French without Johnny Sexton anywhere in the world under Andy Farrell. And I just don't see it in a away game at Stade de France. I think the French will walk away with this with the 5-point win. Let me know your thoughts, guys. Like, comment, subscribe. Appreciate you watching the video. As always, appreciate you donate money to me or subscribe to my membership or Patreon. It means a lot to me. And guys, let me know your thoughts. I'll see you guys in the reviews this weekend, and have a good one, and catch you guys later. Cheers.